Time for another episode of 10-minute RGM interviews. Today I'm being joined by Andrew from Oatly. Andrew, welcome. Would you like to do a brief introduction of yourself?
Yeah, sure. I'm Andrew Lawrence. I manage our data analytics and trade promotions and RGM capabilities for Oatly in the North American market.
Thanks for joining us today. And I'm your
Yeah.
host, Oatly Ding, and looking forward to the conversation. So, Andrew, one of the first questions that I typically ask my guests. So, over the next 12 months, which RGM trends will matter the most for your business, and where will you focus your team's efforts?
It's really interesting because, what we're seeing in the market in terms of where consumers are shifting based off of pricing, how they are reacting to some promos, what our competitors are doing in market. I mean, it makes for really, really interesting times. And we've, as a company, really shifted over time what our focus has been. And right now, one of the key pillars is responsible growth. And so we're really looking at everything. We have new products coming to market, which we hope will drive lots of growth. But then on existing items, really dialing in some of the promotions and some of the trade terms that are there to better optimize particular relationships that we're in, not only with the retailers, but also with the consumers.
Do you find within your promotional mechanics you have more freedom to make a direct impact, or would you rather say, you know what, we're going to list a more profitable SKU for our segment?
Yeah, I think that a lot of times what we're looking at is, how does it fit within the set that it's in? We're perceived as a premium brand. We have a lower elasticity because of that. And so a lot of times we make a lot of decisions based off things around that. And getting the right product in the right place so that the right person picks it up. I mean, that's really the key. Pulling the price lever when needed is great, but sometimes it's not always how deep we need to be going on price. Sometimes the depth doesn't actually translate to any incremental lift. So we are analyzing that down at that customer level, at that product group level, try to figure out where it makes sense and what levers to pull.
Quite an interesting position to be in, because when you are the more premium brand and you have more brand loyalty, then indeed maybe the depth of the discount is not what attracts a bigger uplift. What I'm curious about, because you are a bit more than the premium priced in your segment, right? And when you talk about price elasticity, how often do you refresh those numbers? Because especially very recently, with the tariffs and now the impact on the supply chain and so on, is that something you do often, or?
Yeah, no, I mean, we need to do it more often. It would be great to have it like almost ever living, but we're making some decisions based off of prior data. I think that there's also some of these things, some things like haven't changed in market. Lots of things have, but some things haven't. And one of those are, we've remained a premium product based off of pricing across the board in all of our retailers. We see a lot of different battles happening with some of the other participants in those different sets. And sometimes we feel like we have some competitors are really racing to the bottom. Watching that happen, showing retailers some of the data that we have, that's eroding everyone's margin, it's eroding credibility with the customer, and it's more for just pure market share grab.
Interesting point, because in one of my previous conversations, I spoke about let's say, the price perception and the value perceived, and from RGM perspective, with profitability in mind, and we try to find the most optimal price point and ideally, maximizing the profit. But in the counter side of that, when you do your promo plan and you go for a very deep discount for generating a high uplift, how low should you go, right? Because it could potentially completely destroy the perceived value of the brand. And indeed, right, pricing is always at the sole discretion of the retailer. You can only advise them what to do. And if the retailer across the street is decreasing their price so much more than they are, well, they might follow that, right?
Say, oh, well, I'm not going to discount, I'm not going to pull that lever at all, right? And not never discount. On the other side, you could say I'm going to give it away for free.
Hmm.
And what I'm trying to illustrate here is that if you give something away for free, the customer's value perception of that item
Yeah.
completely, it's thrown out the window. When you have really, really crazy discounts, you are giving something up to the
Yeah.
customer. From our perspective, we're not trying to price high because we're the premium brand. We price high because we do a lot of things that are premium, and
Hmm.
some of that is how we manufacture, and some of that is how we market. While we aren't necessarily running elasticity studies all the time, I mean, one thing that we are watching very heavily is the lift that we are getting from certain promotions, and at what points that lift is happening, and how deep we are going on promotions to get those lifts. And those things, those aren't changing.
Interesting. Another question. So, which RGM capability has become essential for your team that you were not prioritizing as much 2 to 3 years ago?
Yeah, I mean, Oatly's had a long history. We've been around for 25 years, but we're new to the American market. We came here in 2017, 2018. And initially, I mean, man, consumer demand really outstripped supply. At certain points in our history, especially I would say pre-2022, we were just going after anything that we can get because it was growth at all costs. Since 2022, we've kind of been more in a transition. And so with that transition comes more responsible growth. And so things that we're really honing in on now is, are we making sure that when we get to retail or get these products on shelf, that we are going to be ensuring that we're getting paid back in a reasonable amount of time, that the promotion plans that we put together are, really moving the needle, both in volume, picking up additional consumers, all of those things kind of combined.
So I was wondering because Oatly comes from a place where, right, 25 years in the European market or Sweden, then you
Yep.
expand to the US and it's
Yep.
it's massive push on, expansion, distribution, getting on shelf, right? Top line results, volume driven. And now there's this shift into, well, let's protect our bottom line. Let's focus on RGM initiatives, let's focus on productivity, etc.
Yeah.
Do you find any resistance or any challenge internally in terms of people needing to make that shift? Like I would think, especially a salesperson, for many years focusing fully on, incremental sales at whatever cost. And then suddenly it's like, well, let's think about carefully about this product is maybe more profitable. The other one might be rotating better, but we need to think of our margin, right?
Yeah, I mean, our team is and has been living just through being more fiscally responsible. I wouldn't say that everyone's always happy with all of the decisions that are made, and the guidance that's out there. There is at times some pushback, but I think where we're headed is like just more data transparency in terms of, well, here's your goal,
Mm-hmm.
salesperson, and if you need to hit this goal, here are the levers that you can pull.
Mm.
You do it, right?
Yeah,
Like
exactly. Yeah.
here are the insights that we can give you, but here's also what you're going to be judged on. And so by sort of letting them really understand exactly what's happening, top line, bottom line,
Mm-hmm.
that helps them drive informed decisions.
All right. Another question more about the future, right? So we talked about a little bit in the beginning of our conversation. If you had to make one bold prediction about RGM 5 years from now, what would it be and why?
It's really, really interesting times. I mean, who's not going to say something revolving around AI at this point? But I think
Mm.
what's most interesting is that all of the AI tools that are out there can really, really benefit young emerging brands because they have the sort of they'll have the knowledge that's baked into some of these more complex RGM conversations really from a get-go. I would say RGM as a practice is more of a practice that happens when companies get bigger. But to have some of these tools from when you actually start out can be really transformative to a lot of the young brands, because
Definitely.
they're actually able to maybe be way more responsible in terms of how they're growing and some of the decisions that they're making. As you move into the bigger brand space, I can see, I mean, there's just so much data, and having uh, AI agents really help transform that data, get you insights back. I mean, I think it's just so crazy that even the biggest companies in the world, if you launch innovation, you still, you're throwing things at a wall and you don't know how it's going to stick. I mean, you see it every
Yeah.
single big company. No one really knows how a product is going to perform in market. And I think really why that is because it's such a mix of to really capture if a product is going to take off. There are so many variables. It's like probably predicting the weather when you really get down to it.
Yeah.
All of the things that need to align to make that thunderstorm and that lightning bolt hit in one particular spot.
Yeah.
It's really hard. But I think being able to ingest more information will help everyone better forecast, maybe find different elements that we don't even see right now, because maybe there's just so much data for how a new product might perform. We're not even gathering the right things. And I think as our agents become more capable in consuming and analyzing more data, we're going to actually get even better insights than anything that we've ever seen before, and probably have it in more of a conversational sense. Is really exciting times when you get down to it. And I think the other part of that is being able to hyper target customers in terms of, like, if there's a consumer out there that is more likely to buy your product, being able to get in front of them easier through a variety of different ways, maybe even advertising agentically or something like that, or like an LLM of some sort. But then to provide them actually like a custom experience for them, and maybe that is certain, maybe we were able to give certain people certain discount
Yeah.
down to the customer level, not actually at the retail level. I just, it
Super
just makes
personalized
sense.
offers.
Yeah, it can
Yeah.
be super personalized, and part of
Yeah.
me like hopes that happens, because it's
hmm
it's just like a natural evolution of like
Yeah.
where we are right now, but like let's go one level deeper.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the direction we're heading in terms of all the data processing capabilities these machine learnings have is incredible, right? But the only point that I'm wondering about is the execution part of things, right? Because you can do all the analytics, you can do all the insights, but how do you actually bring it in that super personalized way to the consumer? Will be interesting.
Yeah, I mean
Um,
that's going to be that's the thing that needs to be figured out,
yeah,
is how you
yeah,
bring it to that level.
exactly. And the last question. So, you've been in the RGM space now for a bit. And I'm just wondering, what is one lesson you've learned early on in your career that helps you to shape your RGM approach today?
What is really the most important, um, is is embedding yourself, and not only embedding yourself, but just like embedding the idea of RGM into um, the team that you're working with. Working with them to ensure that they know where they stand, what the expectations are, and what levers they have to pull. And a lot of it comes down to like just proper mechanics of understanding, for especially the sales team, what what things can they do on a daily basis that will help them achieve their long-term goals.
Great. Super. Thanks a lot, Andrew.
Yeah, thank
We
you.
always end the interview by also asking about who you would like to see in the next episode. If there's anybody from your
Yeah, I mean,
network
I
you'd like
don't
us to
have
reach out to.
anybody in particular, but I
Mhm.
love the series you've put together, and I
Thank you.
love how you're grabbing people from both, you know, big brands,
Hmm.
middle-sized brands. I think hopefully, as I mentioned earlier on the call, there'll be more younger brands that have RGM capabilities. Right now, I feel like that's not
Hmm.
something that's always available. But
Hmm.
I would love to see. I love the diversity in thought leaders that you've brought so far, and
Hmm.
would love to see more. I guess medium-sized companies out there. There's a
Good.
lot of like emerging brands, and I think the fun thing about emerging brand thought leaders
Hmm.
in this space is that they're sort of like me in terms of like instituting new procedures
Hmm.
and just kind of have a really fun perspective as the practice. There's a few young brands in the US. There's like Olipop. I don't have the
Hmm.
people's names off the top of my head, but young brands that I love,
Yeah.
that I hope will be able to hop on here. Olipop's one. Goodles. I don't know if you've seen
Hmm.
that. It's a remake of mac and cheese. Really awesome
Okay.
brand. I would look into the RGM person who's operating there, but the
Yeah.
Olipop and Goodles, and maybe Poppy too. They just recently were acquired by Pepsi,
Okay.
and so they might have an interesting perspective on that.
Thanks, Andrew. That's a wrap.
Yeah. Thanks a lot for your time. This is really great.